Hey friends, today on Gardening with Creekside, we are going to tackle two of what I deem probably the most important chores in the summertime for your garden. We are going to weed and we are going to water. For the most of us, for the vast majority, right, our major planting is on hold. We do that in the spring, we do that in the fall. The heat of the summertime often is not the absolute most ideal time to plant all the things. And so we as gardeners are pretty much kind of in maintenance mode, maintaining things. And like I've said before in other videos, really what I think some of the two most important jobs that you're going to be doing in your garden right now are maintaining, controlling your weeds, and then making sure that your plants are getting all of the water that they need. Especially with the heat of the summertime and the unpredictable weather. Like I know for us here in North Carolina, we had a week we got 6 inches of rain, and since then we've not gotten a drop, and that was like 2 weeks ago. I know for other parts of the country, you are in desperate need of rain or in drought conditions. So as gardeners, if it's not raining, we have to supplement that water, whether it is by hand or by automatic irrigation. So what we're going to do is we're going to tackle a project here at the berm. I am going to share my tips with you on how I tackle these projects. So a little bit of a reference point here. We're going to go through the berm, and I'm going to give you just a quick little update on how everything is doing here in this garden. So remember, this whole garden is less than a year old. We began the installation process last October, and so this is a very new garden. Now, this is also a very large garden because it's 100 feet long, and depending on the location, the width differs, right? So one of my first tips to you is do not feel like you have to tackle and get every single thing done in a garden space at one time. Pick a spot and say, I'm going to focus on this spot. If I can get this done today, then I will have accomplished my mission and feel very successful. Because I know for me, my brain thinks that I can do a whole lot more than either I physically can do or that I have time for. So today, I'm going to focus on one section of this berm. So what our main focus today is basically from this line of, you can see the snowdrift, Supertunia Vista snowdrift petunias, and then right on the other side of there are some sprinter boxwoods. So where our focus is from the sprinter boxwoods down to the end. So basically that's like 3 fence panels. The weeds here have definitely been our number one problem in the berm this year as far as really anything else goes. Irrigation, we have this set up, the bones set up for irrigation. It is not on irrigation. So if it has, it's because it either rained or we have supplemented water with it, hand watering. So what we're gonna do today, let me just walk you through. You know I am all about sharing my messes and successes. Welcome to the mess. Welcome to Weed Fest 101. We are dealing with what we call like Johnson grass, wiregrass. I've got morning glories in here. I've got briars. I've got unknown. I have got everything. So we are going to weed. Here is the line of sprinter boxwoods. And they basically remember going kind of like a rough triangle around these cherry trees. But let's talk about some successes, shall we? Right? It's not all bad news. Look at Senorita Blanca Cleome. Dear heavens, y'all. Remember, this is a group of, I want to say it's either 4 or 5 in there, and they are doing great. Wonderful. You saw me transplant this. This is a pink Cascade 2 Buddleia butterfly bush. And I did it probably on the worst day. It was hot, it was sunny. This thing, if you remember, it shrunk and was just shriveled. But look at it now. She is happy. She is getting ready to pop with some flowers. She is covered in buds. So yay, so very, very happy on that. So don't be afraid. You're just gonna have to do a little bit of extra watering. So she is doing well. We have 2 more clumps of the Cleome right here. They are doing really nicely. And then Brenna's getting a little extra greens and eating some grass here. Then we have the camellias. So we've got 3 camellias in here This is the October Magic Ruby Camellia. They are doing well. Not a ton of growth. If we had water on them, then they would do a little bit better. You can see morning glories. Morning glories for us are a huge nuisance. They vine, they twine, they naturally are here, and they are just a pain in the gardener's rear. Clematis. You saw me plant these Hudson River clematis. Now again, they totally neglected. So you can see, I have 3 of them, but this is the first of the main clump. So we have lots of beautiful growth going up, and then it is vining. Then there is another one here, and then there is a third one over here in front of this camellia. Super happy with how they're doing. I mean, if they can take this neglect that they have received, then we are doing really well. They have been continuous bloomers. The sweet folks at Brushwood Nursery sent these to me to trial out. I had never even thought about using clematis as a ground cover. But the owner was like, no, this is a great one to use as a ground cover. It is a continuous bloomer. Hudson River has not been in the ground very long. I mean, just a couple of months. And for it to be doing this well, you know, this first summer, really happy with that. We have a pufferfish hydrangea between the 2 sets of the cleomes. Remember, I'm using my annuals to fill in and give me some structure while I am waiting on my perennials and my shrubs to fill in. The pufferfish is doing well. It would do better if it was on irrigation, so we're going to fix that today. Beautiful panicle hydrangea that loves the full sun. The other camellia, the other clematis, and then we come down here and I filled in more with the coleus. This is the Color Blaze Wicked Witch to give me nice structure, and then the Sun Patience. This is compact deep purple, and you can see we have one. I've noticed this year. I don't know what's going on, but both of my sets of Sun Patience, I have some with purple and some with pink, like on the same plant. So not sure what that's all about, but there you go. And then this is the Golden Oakland Holly. This will grow into be a nice sized tree. Again, once we get irrigation on it, it will grow more, but it has a beautiful bright chartreuse color and will get nice and big and fill in this area. So what we're going to do, our first task is to weed, get all of these pesky weeds out. So how do we do that? Well, the best way to do it is just by hand. So that's what we're doing. Let me share with you my tools for today. And we are blessed with some cloud coverage today. We're gonna hope that this lasts for a while because this is a full sun area. So we're gonna pray that the clouds continue. One of my favorite things to use when out in the garden is a really thick kneeling pad. So this just saves your knees. We have these available for sale at the nursery. So if you're coming to the nursery, we have these. You can also get them online. I know Kinsman Garden Company has them, so you can look there. I have got my faithful pop-up container. This is a collapsible like canvas bag. Came from Gardener Supply. Use these everywhere. Like I basically have to buy a couple every year because we use the hound out of them, both at the nursery and the garden center, at the house, because you can put all your weeds in there. It has a hard bottom, it collapses, so when I'm done with it, I can easily make it small. It has handles to move it around with, and I actually hang it on my garden shelf in the garage. So we're going to use that. And then my number one tool in the garden right now is my hori-hori. This will help pull any weeds and make sure that I get the roots out. You can see it is well loved. We use this thing all the time. So that is what we're going to do. I am just going to set the camera up, and then it's not anything special. I'm just going to start in one corner and work my way up, get all of the weeds, every single weed that I see, no matter how small. I am going to go ahead and pull it because I do not want it to grow and develop in the garden. So we're going to get in there, hands and knees, and just have at it. I've got a nice big jug of ice water. I've got my sun hat, and yeah, we're just going to have some quiet time in the garden and pulling weeds. All right, so the first part of the project is complete. The weeding has been done. Jerry came over and helped me on the last part of it, but we got it all weeded up to the section that we wanted to do, and then he had to remind me. He was like, honey, you're getting outside of your zone. Focus, woman. And because he knows me, I tend to go, oh, we'll just keep doing this, and then I don't get the project done exactly completed how I want. So we have to stay focused, and if this part gets done, then I can move on to another section and begin weeding that. Interestingly enough, I know that everything looks really nice, and it is good, but it is so incredibly dry in there. And so we desperately need rain, or we need to get water on these plants so that they continue to look good throughout the season. So let me show you the difference in the weeding. Just makes a huge amount of difference because you can actually see the plants. I know it's kind of a novel concept. Of course, the reason you want to get weeds out is because obviously for the cleanliness and the tidiness of the bed, but those weeds are taking nutrition, water from the soil that your plants cannot get. And oh, I spy some underneath the camellia that I missed. So I have to go back and get that. But yeah, it all looks so much better. I mean, look right here. Look at that. You can actually tell that there are boxwoods under there. It is a novel concept. The petunias were doing really good. They act like a ground cover, so there were very few weeds in there. We just had some sporadic wild grasses popping up in there, so we were able to kind of tiptoe through there and get those out. So now what we're going to do next is we're going to begin prepping for irrigation. Because this is a brand new bed, and it was interesting, he said Jerry could tell a difference between the soil on this side as opposed, because he was weeding some yesterday up further in the bed and there was more organic matter in there. Because when we built the berm, we of course brought in soil and we brought in compost by the truckloads, but inevitably you're going to have areas that have more than others. This seems to have less. So what we're going to do is he has gone to go get the tractor, and we're going to use our compost blend that we have in bulk, and we're going to lay it down over the entire area. So the entire bed right here, again, we're going to be focusing on from the boxwoods all the way down to the very end. So we're going to lay that down first, and then we're going to come back with our brown drip tubing. And so those emitters are every 18 inches apart. That's just what the store had, so that's what we're going to go with. So we're going to lay the irrigation down in this bed, not super heavy, because clearly the plants, you know, once they're established, are pretty tolerant to some drier conditions. It's just to have that supplemental water. And then once the irrigation is down, then we're going to come back with like a hardwood mulch and mulch it. And the mulch really is going to act more as a weed suppressant right now than anything. Of course, the compost with that pine bark fines, that is for nutrition, adding nutrition, organic matter back into this soil so we can build it up, because the richer your soil is, the less you have to fertilize, which means less work in the long run. Whereas the mulch is going to, one, retain moisture, but ultimately it is going to suppress a ton of weeds. I mean, you can see this is why we had so many weeds in here, is because there was no barrier against weeds. People have asked all the time, do we use like landscape fabric or weed barrier? No, absolutely not. Do not do it. The only time that we use landscape fabric, weed cloth, whatever you want to call it, is when we are laying down decorative rock, and we don't want the rock to sink down too far into the native soil. So you lay down the fabric, then you put the rock on top. We have been there, done that from experience, where we thought, oh, this will be really helpful and it will keep the weeds out. It does not. So the reason that you don't want to use your landscape fabric as a weed barrier, a couple of reasons. One, yes, it works temporarily. It'll work for the first season or so, and then it's great. But if you're adding mulch on top of that, then that mulch breaks down like you want it to and turns into compost. But two problems with that. One, then you have this lovely, rich organic matter on top of the landscape fabric. Weeds are going to get in there because seeds are going to blow in and they're going to germinate. So then you're going to have weeds growing on top of the landscape fabric. Then they also, because you have the fabric down, that great organic matter from the decomposed mulch cannot get to your native soil. And then also we have found as those plants grow, they become strangled from the landscape fabric. So the absolute best way to add to your soil to keep the weeds under control is to add your organic matter and a nice thick layer of mulch. If you add that mulch, 2 to 3 inches, you're only having to replace that mulch maybe once a year, maybe 18 months if you're lucky. Depends on how much you're digging in there. So just take it from someone who has learned the hard way. Landscape fabric is more detrimental to a flower bed than it is helpful. So that's what we're going to do. Compost blend, drip tubing, mulch. All right, my friends, so we have got the area all laid down with our compost mulch blend. This is a special blend. If you've been with us for any length of time, you know that we have tried this out. We're dealing with a local, they make soil and compost blends and that kind of things. And so Jerry contacted them and asked if he would make a special blend for us, and they said sure. So basically this is 60% pine bark fines. I always get the ratios backwards. 60% aged pine bark fines, which is, right, so it's already decomposed, it aerates the soil, brings back nutrition. So it's 60% that, and then it is 40% a really great compost. We have used this as a top dress mulch in the woodland gardens. I'm trying to think where we used it as a top dress before, but definitely in the woodland garden just the other week, and it is a beautiful look. It adds great organic material back into our soil, right? And so we laid it down, and we laid it down pretty thick. It was less than a yard of the compost blend here for this section because the Bobcat, the bucket holds a little bit, about a half a yard, and we didn't use quite 2 full buckets on that. It goes down, and Jerry's like, I really like the look of this. Do we want to put mulch on top of it? And I'm like, I know. So we still haven't decided yet if we're going to put mulch on top of it or not. But either way, we are going to put irrigation in. So that's what we're going to do now. And basically on this area, because remember, coming down the berm, on each side of the berm is a zone. So this side of the berm is one zone, the other side is a zone. There are 4 access irrigation valves at this point, not even a valve, but pipes that come up so we can connect in. The closest one to us is right there at the boxwoods on this side. So we will use we'll tee in, and this is a 1/2 inch, and the emitters are every 18 inches. We will go ahead and hit the boxwoods, bring it down, and because of the shrubs, we're going to circle the shrubs, and then with the annuals, we're just going to kind of line it back and forth in there. And then because there are a lot of annuals in this section of the berm, for now, we're going to not tie the irrigation back into the irrigation. We're just going to tie it off at the end. So that way, if we need to, it's just much easier to move it or add to it, because if we do something different with annuals next year, it just makes it easier so that you don't have to cut in and take the tea apart and all that other stuff. So that is what we are going to do. Thank goodness the clouds have held, but oh my word, the humidity is like, I think I saw it's like 79. 79% humidity and a 70-degree dew point, so it is thick out here. It is thick. I am sweating. I am, I've got dirt all over me, but it is fun and it is looking great. So, that is gardening in the South in July. You just get hot and sweaty and dirty and you just go for it. Drink lots of water. All right, so we're gonna get the irrigation laid down and then we'll keep you posted whether or not we put mulch down. All right, my sweet little friends, the project for today is complete, and oh my goodness, it looks amazing. Y'all, I am telling you what, getting out there and getting those weeds out and then putting down a little bit of that fresh mulch because this bed desperately needed it. Oh my goodness, it looks like $1,000,000. I absolutely love it. Yes, it is hot and sweaty and just all the fun things, but this area looks so good, so it will be so worth it. Can't even talk straight, so excited about this. All right, so let me show you how good it looks. I mean, it looks like a brand new flower bed since we first started about, 3 hours ago. So this project in real time did take us about 3 hours to do it. Jerry and I working together. Of course, whenever you film a project, it does take a little bit longer than if you were, doing it just without filming it. But I digress. So clearly you can see that we decided not to go ahead and put down the hardwood mulch. We decided we're going to do an experiment. We're going to see how the color holds up, and then how it works as far as weed suppression. And then I'm sure we will, but when we get big, what we call gully washers, right? Big, huge thunderstorms, how it's gonna hold up, because this is on a berm. It is sloped, it is slanted. I know sometimes in videos it's hard to tell, but I promise it is raised up and it is on an incline. So we'll see how it does. It's easy for us to come back in here and add that mulch if we need to. Now, we were very specific and very isolated on the area that we focused on. So beginning here with these sprinter boxwoods, I want you to imagine, right? Now these are small, but you've got to envision them being like a 2x2, and what a beautiful hedge that is going to make. We're gonna keep these nice and trimmed and thick and tight. So it'll have that beautiful hedge all the way up behind the cherry tree. And then basically it's like wherever the petunias, the color difference is, that is where the boxwoods are. So that's just a little time. The irrigation, of course, is definitely gonna help them grow faster, but they have been growing. How do I know they've been growing? Well, because they have all this bright new growth on them. So here at the top, that limey green, that like brighter color, that is all new growth. So even without being on irrigation, they are already putting on new growth. So that is fantastic. The great thing about having the different access points to the irrigation is that you can work on an area, lay down the irrigation, turn it on, and immediately you have water. We know that we have water running throughout this entire bed, even though we covered it up, because here is the tail end of the irrigation pipe, and you can see there, because we were right there at an emitter, and so I left it open, I didn't tape it, and you can see that there is water dripping. So if there's water dripping at the end of the line, that means that there is water dripping throughout the line. I'm going to run this for about 30 minutes, and that is knowing how these plants have done without irrigation. We're probably going to run this irrigation like maybe once a week. Once a week for 45 minutes, give it a nice deep soaking drink of water. That is what I have done for the woodland garden, and I have done for the entrance bed, the sign bed. I only run them about once a week, 45 minutes, and that is it. Right now they are not on the timers hooked up because we're going to hook up a specific timer for these and those gardens. We just haven't done it yet, so only running it once a week. I have no problem. I'll come up here, turn them on, go do a project, set my watch for 45 minutes. It goes off, I turn it off, I turn on another zone. It works just fine. So excited. So, weeding, watering, two biggest tasks in your garden that you're gonna be doing this summer. Now that you're more in maintenance mode, now can you still plant plants? Absolutely. But the bulk is all done, so now we're just maintaining, weeding, watering. Those are your two big things. So yeah, just pick a little area. It does not have to be this big. Like literally, just pick a spot. It will make you feel so much better because you're accomplished. You've set a goal. I am going to weed this area. If it's a 2x2 area, do a 2x2 area. It does not matter how big it is. Set your goal, do it. You will feel so good and so accomplished afterwards, and your plants and your garden will thank you for it. All right, my sweet friends, I still have a little bit of time and it's still cloudy, so I'm gonna keep on weeding. Jerry was like, Jenny, and I was like, I know. I'm just gonna do a little bit. Anyway, y'all, we hope you have found this fun, informative, inspirational, as always. Thanks so much for gardening with Creekside. Y'all stay cool out there, stay hydrated, very important. Stay hydrated, wear your sunscreen. We love you. See you soon. Bye, friends.